Well, good afternoon. And this is the Emigrant Industrial Savings Bank building, and it has an illustrious history. When it was completed some 100 years ago, it was the tallest bank building in the nation. Yes, that's wow. Who would have thought that? That's right. Both its striking architecture, which it really does have from outside, and its historic importance make it a New York City landmark. And for nearly 50 years, it has also been city-owned property. And so is another nearby landmark structure, the nearly 120-year-old white marble office building at 346 Broadway that was once the headquarters of the New York Life Insurance Company. The city acquired both of these buildings in the 1960s as part of a long-forgotten plan for a second municipal building near City Hall. In fact, this building was supposed to be demolished. And although it was spared that fate, it and 346 Broadway have long been seriously underutilized. And as a consequence, they've punched well below their weight in the real estate market. But today, I'm pleased to say that is about to change. We're announcing that we've reached an agreement to sell both these buildings. Together, they account for approximately 600,000 square feet of highly valuable space here in Lower Manhattan, and one of the most dynamic and fast-growing residential and commercial neighborhoods in the city is right where we're standing, or sitting. The sales of these buildings will have three major benefits. First, they dramatically decrease the amount of office space used by city agencies, making their operations more efficient and less costly. And we can do that in part because we reduced the city workforce by some 18,000 employees while doing more with less to provide first-rate services to New Yorkers. If you remember, in our State of the City address in 2010, we set a goal of reducing city office space by 10% within 4 years' time, and that is the equivalent of 1.2 million square feet. The transactions we're announcing today bring us more than 80% of the way towards that goal. The consolidation of city operations from just these two sales alone will reduce city operating expenses by something like $120 million over the next 20 years. And agencies that now occupy space here, such as the Department of Education and Parks and the Board of Corrections and the Rent Guidelines Board, will relocate to other addresses. The result is going to be a far better use of space. Just consider that some 30% of the remarkable building we're in is in either vacant or used for storage, which is a pretty inefficient use of such valuable real estate. The value of these two buildings brings me to my second point. Their gross sale price totals nearly $250 million, some $89 million for the sale of this building and $160 million for the building at 346 Broadway. And after deducting the costs associated with this project, including moving city agencies out of these buildings, the city will net about $120 million, and such money is always welcome. Let me add that the sales of these buildings have already been approved through the city's land use review process, and now the specific terms of the contracts for the sales, which are being handled by the city's Economic Development Corporation, must also be approved by the Manhattan Borough Board. The third major benefit of this transfer of these buildings to private developers is that it will spur the continued renaissance of Lower Manhattan as a vibrant 24-hour business and residential neighborhood. The Chetrit Group, the purchaser of the Emigrant Industrial Savings Bank building, intends to convert it for residential and retail use, and the Peebles Corporation, the buyer of 346 Broadway, plans to convert most of the building to residential and hotel space. And as a condition of these sales, our administration pledged that a portion of the building would be dedicated to community use and that the community would have a say in that use. Now, working with Borough President Scott Stringer and Councilwoman Margaret Chin, the manager of these spaces, the city's Department of Citywide's Administration Services convened a community task force that met several times to discuss local needs, and based on that input, the Peebles Corporation plans to convert some 16,000 square feet on the ground floor of 346 Broadway to a digital arts and media space that will be available to the community. The city and the developer will work to ensure that it's properly equipped and made into a facility the community will be proud of. And I would like to thank Borough President Scott Stringer for his work on this project, including this aspect of it. Scott, you want to say a few words? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, and I also want to thank your staff at DCAS and EDC, and especially Deputy Mayor Cas Holloway for collaborating with us and working so well together. You know, a year ago, my colleagues and I set out to make the Civic Center sale a process in which we could meet both city and community needs, and I'm happy to say that by working with all parties, including Councilmember Margaret Chin, we have met that goal. The transaction will generate nearly $250 million to facilitate the relocation of city agencies, and also saves another $120 million over the next 20 years by reducing the city's footprint in the Civic Center area. The community also made it clear that they wanted to ensure the sale served the growing youth community in Lower Manhattan. And today, the modified plan takes a positive step forward with 16,000 square feet of space devoted to educating our youth in critical digital arts and media fields. Training our kids for the changing economy is going to keep New York competitive with the rest of the world in the years to come. And we also recognize that as Lower Manhattan continues to evolve and change, we need to make sure that we meet the needs of our children. That's what the task force was all about, identifying these needs, but it also matters to us that our concerns were heard. So I want to thank you, Mayor, for doing something I think is going to have an impact on the city budget, but also makes a big difference to the children in Lower Manhattan. It was a great collaboration. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I might point out we have Councilman Comrie and Jackson with us, but we're going to hear from Councilwoman Margaret Chin. Margaret.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank Mayor Bloomberg for engaging the Lower Manhattan community to help designate community space in one of these buildings, and for his work to consolidate our city government and make it more efficient. I truly believe that incorporating input from the surrounding community made the responses from the city received from developers stronger and more versatile. This project will include 16,000 square feet of ground floor community space for downtown youth programming in 346 Broadway. This is a project that the task force prioritized, and also it was more space than we originally anticipated. This community facility is a $35 million investment in Lower Manhattan. In addition, the sales of this building will help generate much needed revenue for the city and will save the city on operating expenses at a time when the city budget is so tight. I know Deputy Mayor Holloway, DCAS, and EDC worked very hard on this project, and I thank them for being responsive to our community's concern. Thank you, Mayor.
Margaret, thank you. The sales we're announcing today are part of a much larger relocation and consolidated effort led by Deputy Mayor for Operations Cas Holloway and DCAS Commissioner Edward Wells Handy. Some 50 relocations and consolidation projects have already been completed, with another 36 underway or in the planning stages, including those we've described today. These projects taken together will reduce rent and operating costs for the city by at least $470 million over the next 20 years. And now I'm going to ask Commissioner Handy to tell us a little more about today's announcement, how it fits into that overall strategy. Edna?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. This is quite literally a landmark event for DCAS. We stand here. Okay. I'm following my mayor's example by trying to use the
yes, well,
iPad.
We'll work at
we'll
this.
Work it. Okay.
It's got to be probably under.
It's here, pages.
There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, another landmark, the mayor as teacher.
Everybody takes a while to get used to it. Right?
Thank you. Okay, so this is a landmark event for DCAS. We are fulfilling long-term goals of the mayor by first bringing these buildings to its higher and best use. We are fulfilling the mayoral initiatives of ridding the city of underutilized space and optimizing the space in city-owned property. We are adding an added element of upgrading city-owned space such that we'll become recruitment eligible and recruitment worthy for the next generation of city workers. This project will create over 600 construction and permanent jobs combined, and we are meeting our agency's goal of providing service to our sister agencies that's better, faster, cheaper, and greener. Many of you know of DCAS as the back office. We consider DCAS the backbone of city government. DCAS stands behind every city worker, not only in providing the people to work, but the place in which to work. And we are proud to announce that this is our largest real estate transaction ever with a MWBE. For those of you who don't know, MWBE is for minority and women-owned businesses, another one of the mayor's initiatives, which is to increase opportunities for those who are previously had limited opportunity. As the mayor explained, it is just one part of our efficiency initiative. We have completed 50 projects to reduce office space, and we're working on 36 more. But that's just the front part of the story. The back end of the story is the interesting part. Under Deputy Mayor and others, we had people from DCAS walk every inch of city-owned space to determine the utilization and then to come up with a plan for optimization. That plan resulted in space guidelines, it resulted in the space optimization and utilization plan, and we are thrilled to report that in just 3 years' time, we have decreased our office space by 1,067,000 square feet. Our process was especially notable for making outreach, as I indicated, to this incredibly diverse and talented city and its developers. I am proud of the work that DCAS with its EDC's team has performed under the wonderful leadership of Deputy Mayor Holloway. I would like to make note, first, this effort was led by Teresa Ward, our first asset management chief. And you know, when you have a race, you have your anchor team. So our anchor team, which is led now by Joey Karakach in bringing it home, along with Matt Burke, our executive director for Citywide Real Estate, R. Fenimore Fisher, our chief diversity and EEO officer, and Tawan Davis, who I'm told is a master negotiator, EDC's vice president. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you very much. Kyle Kimball is the executive director of the city's Economic Development Corporation, which is overseeing the property sales we've announced today, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about it. Kyle.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Kimball, and we just wanted to say a few remarks at the Economic Development Corporation. We're very honored to have been a part of this transaction. Economic development comes in many forms, and we're very excited, in addition to the proceeds that this sale will provide to the city upfront and ongoing. We're also very excited about the cultural vitality and the additional economic activity that will be generated here in Lower Manhattan with the help of the Chetrit Group and Peebles. So thank you very much for being great partners and really stepping up into the value that we see at the Economic Development Corporation about these city assets. And this is one of hopefully future transactions we'll be able to complete to benefit the city. So thank you very much to my team, Tawan, Jeff, Josh, and PJ, who worked on this, the vision of Teresa Ward and Joey, and also thank you, Deputy Mayor Holloway and Mayor Bloomberg and Edna for having the vision to unlock the value for the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. And last are Donahue Peebles, the CEO and chairman of the Peebles Corporation and the next owner of 346 Broadway.
Thank you. I want to first thank Mayor Bloomberg and his administration for entrusting such a very special building and special opportunity to our company, and I want to assure the mayor and his team that I will not let you down. I also want to tell you that I've negotiated transactions and public-private partnerships in Washington, D.C., Florida, New Orleans, and many other places, and I can say that none has been more tougher as a negotiating process that I just went through with your administration. But I want to say, on the other hand, there's not been a fairer negotiating, a more transparent negotiating process that I've ever engaged in my 25 years in the real estate business. And so I want to thank you for creating that environment for someone like me to come in here and do business. This building represents a dream come true to me personally. Ever since my mother took me to New York City on a family vacation in 1972 as a 12-year-old boy, I was inspired by the energy and the people of New York City and dreamt of one day being able to come here and be a part of New York. And to be here, to be a part of restoring a tremendous landmark, I'm grateful for the opportunity and look forward to a great partnership with your government and all that we work together on. And thank you very much.
Where did you live back then?
Back then, I lived in Detroit, Michigan, in between Washington, D.C. So my mother took me here one summer. She told me I had to see New York and showed it to me, and it's been inspiring me ever since.
Good, great. Well, welcome aboard. Happy
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Thank you.
Let me also point out that we're joined by Joseph Chetrit, representing the Chetrit Group and the next owner of the Emigrant Industrial Savings Bank. And as Edna Handy did, I'd also like to recognize the Chief Asset Manager of DCAS, Joey Koch, and her team, and also EDC Vice President for Real Estate Services, Twan Davis. Their hard, creative, and meticulous work has made these transactions a reality, and this city will benefit from these for a long time going forward. The result is something that New Yorkers and the Lower East Side Manhattan community will both share in. Before taking questions, let me summarize today's announcement for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. Estamos anunciando la venta de dos propiedades de la ciudad en el Bajo Manhattan. La venta de estos dos edificios bajará nuestros gastos, ayudará a ser más eficiente y nos traerá casi $150 million a la ciudad. And with that,